I drove 9 hours with 2 kids in the back seat, just to be told I didn't belong, not by a stranger, not by someone who didn't know me, but by my own brother's wife. Standing in the house we all grew up visiting, she said it loud enough for everyone to hear. This reunion is for family, not outsiders. And the worst part? My brother didn't stop her. He looked at me and agreed. So I smiled, picked up my keys, and walked out. But here's what they didn't realize. I didn't react, because I had already seen something they shouldn't have left behind. Because sitting on that table was proof they thought no one would understand. And by the next day, everything they thought they owned was gone. Before I tell you what happened next, my name is Danielle Brooks. I'm 35 years old, and this happened in Columbus, Ohio. Before we continue, if you like stories where silence turns into power, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read every single comment. Now let me take you back to that day, because it didn't start with the insult. It started the moment I walked through that door. The drive took 9 hours, 2 kids in the back, snacks, music, small conversations to pass the time. I kept telling myself, this would be worth it. Family reunion, something normal, something steady, something that might feel like belonging again. I hadn't been back in years, but a part of me still believed things might be different this time. The house looked exactly the same. Large wooden porch, wide front yard, cars already parked outside, laughter coming from inside. For a moment, I just sat in the car, looking at it. Because places don't change, but people do. And I wasn't sure which version of them I was about to walk into. I opened the door. Kids beside me. Voices inside got louder as we stepped in. People turned. Some smiled. Some looked surprised. Some didn't react at all. And then I saw her, my brother's wife, standing near the center of the room, watching me like she had been waiting. Her name was Kelsey. Perfect posture, controlled smile, the kind of person who doesn't raise their voice, because they don't need to. She looked me up and down, then at my kids, and I already knew. This wasn't going to be a warm welcome. She didn't wait long, didn't pull me aside, didn't lower her voice. She said it right there. This reunion is for family, not outsiders. The room went quiet, not shocked, not surprised, just still, because everyone heard it. I looked at my brother, Marcus, waiting, expecting something, a correction, a reaction, anything. But he didn't argue, didn't hesitate. He just said, "She's right. You were never really part of this." And just like that, the ground shifted. I glanced toward my mother, Elaine. She saw everything, heard everything, and did nothing. Just looked down, adjusted something on the table, avoided my eyes completely. She looked at me, then looked away like I wasn't worth defending. And somehow, that silence hurt more than the words. No one stepped in. No one said, "That's not okay." Some people looked uncomfortable. Others just pretended it wasn't happening, because silence is easier, especially when speaking up means choosing a side. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, didn't explain anything. I just smiled slightly, the kind of smile that confuses people, because it doesn't match the situation. "Okay," I said. That was it. No emotion, no resistance, just acceptance. I turned around, took my kids' hands, and walked toward the door. No one stopped me, no one called my name. And as I passed the main table near the entrance, something caught my eye. A folder, left open, papers inside. I slowed down, looked around, No one was paying attention. And without saying a word, I took it and walked out. The moment I stepped outside, the noise from the house disappeared. Like someone had shut off a switch. I helped my kids into the back seat, closed their doors, then walked around to the driver's side, holding that folder in my hand. For a second, I just stood there, looking at it, because something about the way it was left out felt wrong. Important things are never left in plain sight by accident. I sat in the car, closed the door, and opened the folder slowly. The first page looked official. Legal formatting, typed paragraphs, signatures at the bottom. At first, I thought it was just paperwork for the event, but then I saw the words, property transfer agreement, and my stomach tightened. I kept reading, and then I saw the address. That house. The same house I had just walked out of. The place where they told me I didn't belong was right there in the document, listed clearly, legally, as part of a transfer. And suddenly, this wasn't just a family gathering anymore. I flipped to the next page, and that's when everything shifted. The names listed weren't random. They were familiar. Marcus Brooks, Kelsey Brooks, my brother, and his wife. Receiving ownership, full control. No mention of anyone else. Then I saw the signature at the bottom, and my hands went still, because I recognized it immediately. My father, Harold Brooks. The same man who always said that house would stay in the family equally. The same man who believed in fairness more than anything. And yet, his name was right there, approving everything. I checked the date. Recent. Too recent. Just a few weeks ago. Which meant this wasn't something from years back. This was new, planned, executed quietly. And somehow, no one told me. I flipped through the rest of the pages. More signatures, more legal language. Everything looked clean on paper. Too clean. Because I knew something about my father. He didn't make decisions like this quietly. He talked things through, explained everything. But this looked rushed. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the documents. And suddenly, everything from inside the house made sense. The attitude, the confidence, the way Kelsey spoke to me like I had no place there. Because in their minds, they had already erased me. But something didn't add up. If this was legitimate, why leave it out on a table? Why risk anyone seeing it? Unless they thought no one there would question it. Or worse, they thought no one there mattered enough to understand it. I closed the folder, looked back at the house one more time. Lights on, voices inside, people still laughing, like nothing had happened. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to call. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to confront them emotionally. Because this wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about proof. And I already had it. I didn't call my brother. I didn't call my mother. I didn't even text anyone, because I've learned something the hard way. When people lie, they prepare answers. But when you stay silent, they don't know what you know. And that's when mistakes happen. So instead of reacting, I drove. Straight home. With that folder sitting beside me, like something that wasn't just paper anymore, but leverage. That night, after my kids were asleep, I spread every document across the table, page by page, line by line, reading slowly, carefully, not emotionally, logically, because emotions cloud details, and details are where truth hides. The more I read, the clearer it became. This wasn't a simple transfer. This was structured, calculated, designed to look clean. At first glance, everything looked legal. Proper formatting, witness signatures, official stamps. But there was something subtle, something small, that didn't sit right. The spacing between signatures, the dates written slightly differently, like they were filled in separately, not all at once. And that's when I realized this wasn't rushed. It was staged. One signature looked slightly different, like it had been copied, not written. I leaned back in my chair and thought about my father. The last time I saw him, he wasn't the same. He was quieter, slower, forgetful at times. Not incapable, but not sharp enough to process complicated legal decisions alone. And suddenly the question hit me. Did he even fully understand what he signed? There was one person I hadn't thought about in years, a man my father once mentioned, a financial consultant he trusted, not family, not emotionally involved, just someone who dealt in facts. His name was Daniel Reeves. I didn't even know if his number still worked. But I knew one thing. If anyone could read these documents without bias, it would be someone like him. The next morning, I called. It rang twice. Then he picked up, his voice calm, professional. I introduced myself, mentioned my father's name. There was a pause, then recognition. Yes, I remember him, he said, and suddenly, this wasn't just my suspicion anymore. It became real. We met that afternoon. Small office, quiet space, no distractions. I placed the folder in front of him, didn't explain, didn't guide, just said, "Can you look at this?" Because I didn't want confirmation. I wanted truth, even if it went against me. He didn't speak for a long time, just read. Turned pages slowly, checked signatures, looked closer at dates. At one point, he adjusted his glasses and leaned in. That's when I knew. He had found something, because people only look closer when something doesn't match. He finally looked up. Not shocked, not dramatic, just certain. These signatures weren't done under normal conditions. My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" I asked. He tapped the page lightly. "Timing is inconsistent. Witnessing looks staged. And this kind of transfer," he paused, "should never happen this quietly." Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "This could be considered coercion. Not misunderstanding, not confusion, not a mistake. Coercion." Which meant one thing. My father didn't just sign this, he was pushed into it. And suddenly, this wasn't family drama anymore. This was fraud. At this point, would you stay silent or speak up? Tell me in the comments. I didn't react immediately after Daniel said the word coercion. I didn't panic. Didn't rush back to that house, because this wasn't something you confront emotionally. This was something you prepare for. So I sat there in that office while he explained everything in detail. What steps were needed, what documents mattered, and what would happen next if we chose to act. Daniel was calm, but very clear. "If this holds up," he said, "this transfer can be frozen immediately. Not reversed later, not debated. Frozen." Which meant my brother and his wife would lose control instantly, but only if everything was handled correctly, because mistakes at this stage could cost everything. He asked me one question. "Do you have anything else?" I thought for a moment, then remembered something small, the way my father had sounded on our last call. Confused, hesitant, repeating himself. At the time, I ignored it. Now, it mattered. Because patterns tell stories, and his behavior didn't match someone making confident decisions. Daniel leaned back slightly, then said something that made everything even clearer. "This wasn't just pressure. This looks like manipulation. The way the documents were structured, the timing, the isolation. Everything pointed to one thing. They didn't just convince him, they cornered him." We didn't wait. He prepared a formal notice. Clean, precise, legal language that didn't leave room for interpretation, and attached to it, a request for immediate investigation. No warnings, no discussions, just action. Because sometimes, the strongest move is the one they don't see coming. This time, I wasn't going back as family. I was going back with proof. Same road, same distance, but it felt different this time. Because I wasn't going there to belong anymore. I wasn't going there to be accepted. I was going there with something else. Clarity. And when you have that, everything changes. The house looked the same. Cars still parked. Voices still inside. Like nothing had changed. Like yesterday never happened. And that's the thing about people who think they've won. They relax too early. They stop watching. They stop being careful. I opened the door and walked in. This time, no hesitation. People turned again. But the energy was different. Because now, I wasn't the one being judged. I was the one they didn't understand anymore. And that made them uncomfortable. Kelsey saw me first. Her expression shifted instantly. Not confident this time. Not controlled. Just alert. Marcus followed her gaze. And when he saw me standing there again, something in his posture changed. Because they weren't expecting me back. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. Didn't explain anything. I simply walked to the center of the room, placed the folder on the table, and looked at both of them. Calm, steady, certain. Because this time, I wasn't standing there as someone trying to belong. I was standing there with the truth. The room went quiet the moment I placed the folder on the table. No one touched it. No one asked. Because something about the way I stood there, calm, steady, unshaken, told them this wasn't a conversation anymore. This was a conclusion. Marcus looked at the folder, then at me, like he was trying to figure out how much I knew. Kelsey didn't speak, but her posture changed. And that's how you know the truth is close. People stop performing. The front door opened behind me, slow, deliberate, and footsteps followed. I didn't turn immediately, because I didn't need to. I already knew who it was. Daniel walked in, calm as always, holding a thin file in his hand. Not dramatic, not loud, but his presence alone shifted the entire room, because now, this wasn't family anymore. This was authority. Daniel didn't greet anyone, didn't explain. He simply walked to the table, opened the file, and said one sentence. This property transfer is now under formal review. No emotion, no hesitation, just fact. And in that moment, everything changed. Because this wasn't something they could argue with. Kelsey was the first to react. "This is ridiculous," she said quickly. Too quickly. Her voice sharper than before. Controlled, but slipping. Marcus stayed quiet, which was worse. Because silence from him now wasn't power. It was fear. Daniel continued calmly. The signatures show irregular timing. Witness structure is inconsistent. And the conditions suggest pressure was applied. Each sentence landed heavier than the last. No shouting, no accusations, just facts. And facts don't need volume to hurt. Then he said it clearly. The transfer is frozen, effective immediately. Frozen, which meant no ownership, no control, no access. Everything they thought they secured was gone in one sentence. Kelsey's face went pale. Marcus looked down. And for the first time, they had nothing. I finally spoke. Not loud, not emotional, just clear. "If I don't belong here," I paused slightly, looked at both of them. "Then neither do you." No anger, no bitterness, just balance. Because this wasn't revenge. This was correction. People started shifting again. But this time, it wasn't discomfort. It was awareness. The same people who stayed silent before were now watching everything closely. Because now they understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was something much bigger. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story. It's about what happens when truth finally shows up. Tell me in the comments, would you have walked away quietly or come back like this? I read every single comment. Kelsey tried to say something again, but stopped. Marcus didn't move. My mother stood in the background, watching, still silent. But this time, her silence meant something different. Because now she knew. This wasn't something she could ignore anymore. I didn't stay, didn't argue, didn't wait for reactions. I just picked up my keys, took my kids' hands, and walked toward the door. Same way I left the first time. But this time, everything behind me had changed. Because they said I didn't belong in that house, but it was never theirs to begin with. Some people remove you quietly until you remind them who was never replaceable. And some truths don't need noise to destroy everything. If you enjoy stories where calm decisions create powerful endings, make sure to subscribe. And tell me, have you ever stayed quiet until the right moment changed everything? I read every single comment. There's another story waiting for you on your screen, and I'll see you there.